going to hell down here in Texas.
Oh, yeah. What's up, everybody? This is your boy, Big Bad Bob, with you here. This is the Lone Gunman Podcast, and this is episode numero 224. That's right, we're getting up there. A good thing I can count. Anyway, what's up, everybody? Got a fun show for you today. I figured, we've been deep diving into some hickory lately, and it's always good to break things up and do a little bit of a funner episode every once in a while. And I think you'll dig it, because every once in a while, you gotta clean up the fuckery that's out there. You know what I'm saying? And some fuckery was actually brought to my attention here recently, and it has to do with more mainstream Mandela effect, and also just downright horse's assery. So I don't normally pluck emails that are sent to the Quick Hits mailbag, but I figured that this one could be better addressed in its own show. Doug doesn't have much patience for horse's assery, and I figured, combined with the other thing that I'm going to share with you here today, that it would make a good show. Because it does deserve more than just a passing observation and comment, because it's becoming rampant in this world of immediate social media fact dropping. It seems like anybody that has a cell phone, and which is everybody, and who chooses to have an opinion on something or another, and has a decent sized following, can get the ball rolling and become something that we call viral. So I'm going to read to you an email that was sent to us by listener Lisa Marie. Now, she sent this to our Quick Hits mailbag. Like I said, I'm going to steal it, and we're going to do a show about it. So, I'm assuming Lisa Marie listens to this show, as well as the Dallas Action, as well as Quick Hits. So, hopefully she won't mind me stealing this for the Lone Gunman Podcast. So, the email starts off this way. Hey, Rob and Doug, it's Lisa. You read my email on your November 20th show, but I only just heard it this week, because since then I've spent my spare time consuming the entire Lone Gunman podcast. Well, God bless you. So you do listen to the show, Lisa. That's great. Next up is the Dallas Action. Hey, right? Except I want to know why the Dallas Action isn't available on the Apple Podcast app. And who do I have to kick in the balls to make that happen? Well, Lisa, you're going to have to kick Doug in the balls. Been trying to get him to get on Apple for years. He just refuses to do it. He's an Android guy like me. Um, but honestly, Lisa, I know it's ease of use or whatever the case may be. I would just recommend to you get something, um, an app that you can listen to your podcasts on other than Apple Podcast. I use Podcast Addict, and it's great. You can subscribe to any show you want to, even if it's not on any podcast platform. You could even subscribe using an RSS feed. So it's great. It notifies you when new episodes drop. It checks every morning for new episodes. Um, so I would recommend that. I don't know that Doug is going to be on Apple Podcasts anytime soon, but you can certainly find him on a podcaster like Podcast Addict, or download the Spreaker app, uh, which you can find all of our stuff there as well and listen via that way. But this, I believe the Spreaker app only plays podcasts hosted by Spreaker, whereas something like Podcast Addict pulls in from everywhere. And when I mean everywhere, or when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. Back to her email. Anyway, it made my whole day when you mentioned me. All of my non JFK friends were side eyeing me over my excitement. I'm a math teacher, but on November 22nd, I skipped math and did a JFK assassination class with my eighth graders. They were enthralled, and now a few of them have been borrowing some of my books and reading up on the assassination. I hope to be inspiring the next generation of researchers for sure, and hopefully they're also competent at solving algebraic equations too. LOL. Now, Lisa, that's awesome, and I commend you as a teacher for branching out every once in a while. And you know what? You could even incorporate some of the facts from the JFK assassination into your lesson plan, if you so desire, such as improbability, like the number of deaths surrounding the assassination. Now, I know it's not one of the most uplifting topics, but there are numbers there that uh, should be evaluated and checked out. Also, really get into like the angles, of the alleged assassination, from the school book depository window down to the street. You could triangulate using math, the degree of the angle. You can measure out the tracks of the bullet from there, from the grassy knoll, from the street. All kinds of things you could apply mathematically to the assassination. Might be a good exercise, but anyway, don't listen to me. I don't have a degree in education, let alone mathematical education. All right, back to her email. I wanted to write because I'm also on TikTok. TikTok. Okay, your credibility just dropped a notch there, Lisa. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. And I recently came across a video about a JFK Mandela effect that I thought was absolutely bizarre. And anyone who's ever studied the assassination would never understand how it came to be. Mandela effects are when people collectively remember something happening one way when it actually happened completely differently. For example, the fruit of the Loom logo never had a cornucopia in it, but most people think that it did. I digress. In this case, hundreds of people commented on this girl's video, saying that they too had the same memory, that the JFK limousine didn't have a jump seat, and the only passengers in the car were JFK, Jackie, and a driver. People were commenting that they've seen it in pictures, they learned it in history class, etc. I just think there's no possible way that anyone could get that wrong if they even spent 5 minutes learning about the assassination. I agree, Lisa. Is this just people being morons? Yes, you are 100% correct. Uneducated morons. A complete failure of the American education system. Yes, again, you are 100% correct. Or do we really think it's possible that some textbooks could have this wrong? I doubt it. I don't, honestly, I don't even remember uh, textbooks having anything remotely even about the assassination. If it was, it definitely didn't have any pictures, um, and it may have only mentioned in passing, of course, that Kennedy was killed by one assassin named Lee Harvey Oswald, and that was about the extent of it. But I could not resist making a response to this girl's video because it was completely mind blowing to me that anyone could learn about the assassination and not know about the jump seats and the fact that the Connollys were in the car along with them. I tried to share the videos as files, but they're too large. Here are the links. Some of the comments are so crazy. People remember him sitting on the back of the car and all kinds of crazy shit. Okay, thanks for keeping it real and becoming a part of my daily nerdery. Nerdery. Lisa. All right, Lisa. I have got your links. I have transformed them through the magic technology into audio files. But before we play them, because not everybody is uh, up on things, hip with the kids and TikToking as we are, Lisa. So, pardon me. Also, a lot of people may have never even heard of the Mandela effect before, and they're going to be like, what in the hell are these people talking about? So, before we get to what Lisa sent me, and before we get to her response, I want to play two short audio clips, less than a minute each one, explaining a little bit about different Mandela effects. Okay? So here we go. Here's the first one.
Mandela effects that'll make you question everything. First is the thinker statue. When you think of the thinker statue, most people think he has a closed fist going like this. In reality, he's always had an open fist. His hand is like this, not a closed fist. Next is Shaggy's Adam apple. Most people remember Shaggy having a very pronounced Adam's apple, but he's actually never had one. Some people attribute this to sometimes it looks like this when he's swallowing, but not very often. So we've all seen the "what if I told you" meme, right? Well, in The Matrix, Morpheus never says, "what if I told you?" He actually never says it in any part of the trilogy as well, despite all the memes. Next is this candy, Mike and Ike's. Most people remember it being called Mike and Ike's, not Mike and Ike's. So we all ate these pizza rolls growing up. What are they called? Tostino's pizza rolls? Wrong. It's Totino's pizza rolls.
Here are some Mandela effects that will make you question reality. Alright, firstly, many people remember Mona Lisa having a blank expression. However, in this famous painting, she's been smiling the whole time. Next, in the famous movie E.T., he says the line E.T. phone home. However, he never said that, and he really said this. E.T. phone. Now, everyone can agree that Mickey Mouse wore suspenders, right? I mean, it just looks more accurate. But it looks like my childhood was a lie, because throughout all of the episodes, he was never seen wearing suspenders. And finally, we all remember the famous Queen song, "We Are the Champions," right? And it ends by saying, "We are the champions of the world." However, I don't know why we think of this, but it never says "of the world," it just ends.
So there's a couple examples of Mandela effects. Some of the other ones are the spelling of Looney Tunes, the spelling of Fruit Loops, whether or not Kit Kat bars had a dash in between Kit Kat, the Target logo, the Berenstain or Berenstain Bears controversy. Of course, people who remember the reason it's called the Mandela effect is because they believed that Mandela died way before he supposedly really died in this timeline. And, a couple of them that those people just stated, kind of resonate with me. I definitely remember ET saying ET phone home, not ET home phone. I mean, just weird. And I definitely remember it being the Berenstein Bears, not the Berenstain Bears. But could this just be us misremembering, or is this? And a lot of people blame it on CERN. They believe that the experiments being done at CERN have caused timelines to shift and be misremembered in a different way because of all these timelines, coming in and out of things that have been shifted around. And is it just people misremembering things? Like Darth Vader never said, Luke, I am your father. He said, no, I am your father. Where do these things come from in your brain? Like Bob Barker, the host of The Price is Right, could have swore that dude died years ago. Apparently he's alive and well and turning 100 years old this year. Yeah, he's still alive. So, you know, it's kind of a fascinating thing to look at when you're talking about, uh, the way that the human mind works, or is CERN really fucking with things? Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, here is the TikTok that Lisa sent. Okay, here we go.
I know you've heard of the Mandela effect, and if you haven't, please look it up. Now, with Mandela effects, a lot of times this stuff rolls right off my back. It is what it is. It's not moving me. But there's one Mandela effect that really, 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 really gets to me. Like, really gets to me because it's just so ridiculous. And that Mandela effect is going to have to be the JFK assassination. And I'm going to tell you why. This Mandela effect went into play probably like 4 years ago, but I remember it only being three people in that car. That middle row did not exist. And let's be real. How many cars have y'all seen that got rows like that? What kind of car is this? It's like what? A minivan, sedan? It was the driver, Jackie, and JFK in the car, not that middle row. So this middle row is at the time this was a Texas senator and his wife. And I don't know, I just never seen a car like this. And this is not what it was given when I was taught this in school. This is CERN. What's going on? Is it CERN? Is this a CERN thing? This will be a CERN thing. Now, y'all explain to me why the car in the museum only has two rows like I remember it, right? But all the photos have these magic three rows. Like, y'all messed up with this one, CERN. Y'all didn't do y'all due diligence. Y'all didn't scrub it down right because y'all left some remnants of the past when y'all switched it up. Y'all left y'all remnants. Y'all left some crumbs behind. Because what is this? This is how I remember it. Do you?
Can't tell you how many years ago it was that I addressed this Mandela effect on the Lone Gunman podcast. Because it was brought up in a Facebook group, and at that point, somebody was saying, "Oh no, the limo wasn't black; it was white, and it only had 4 seats or 4 people in it." You know, and they were claiming Mandela effect and this and that. And at that time, a lot of the blame could be placed on Life magazine, in their assassination, their post assassination um, issue. They had a picture of a white car with 4 people in it, 2 drivers and JFK and Jackie, and no Connolly or Nellie. And, you know, a lot of these things, if that's all you've seen, can be burned into your memory at a young age. And I actually had a copy of that Life magazine with that particular fucked up photo in it. And look, there are a lot of photos out there of the JFK limousine, and with various people in it, in various configurations, as Lisa will tell you in just a second. She did a response to this TikTok, and I thought she did a great job. So let's hear it now.
Okay, this is actually killing me because I don't know how it's possible for anyone not to know this. So just like give me a second. Okay, so this is my JFK bookshelf. I also have like plenty of JFK related memorabilia, and that's not even it. So let me just show you what I have here for a second. Okay, so this is a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper from the day after the assassination. And you could see in the picture, I mean, the quality's not great, but there's Kennedy and his wife, and that's Connolly's wife in front of them in the jump seat. This is a picture from behind. You can also see Jackie's on the back, and that's the back of Connolly's wife's head. Nellie, I think is her name. Yeah, definitely very clear. Again, these are newspaper pictures from the day after the assassination. I think that's the most close to the actual day that I have here. This is for Days, which was published in 1964. I have 4 of them.
Nerd.
So again, you could see like Jackie and JFK, and then the middle row, and then the 2 Secret Service agents in the front. Yep. Again, like JFK and Jackie, and then that looks like the back of Nellie Connolly's head, and then the Secret Service men are up there. And then this is a magazine from November of 1995. And I'm wondering if you may have seen a picture like this, which is part of a reenactment and not the actual picture from the assassination day that has no jump seat and isn't even a similar type of car. This book was published in 1988. And again, I mean, you can very clearly see there are 3 rows in the car. So, this book was published in 2013, so it's newer. But it has pictures from the day before the assassination in it, which again, like in this particular arrangement, JFK and Connolly are sitting in the back, and Nellie and Jackie are in the middle. And yeah, this one, they're on opposite sides. Connolly and Nellie. You can also find on YouTube, there are compilation videos of the limousine all around the country in the years preceding the assassination. So, yeah.
Thank you, Lisa. That was well done. And my nerd comments were completely out of love. I jest because I love. No, you're a human being after my own heart. And God bless you for taking the time to clap back, if you will, on erroneous TikToks. You brought up a great number of examples, real life, real tangible object evidence that this Mandela effect is just not true. Now, of course, this is an auditory podcast, and in her TikTok, Lisa had plenty of visual examples of the many different configurations and pictures shown of people in this limousine, and also of the reenactments. And I think her observation that sometimes the reenactments get burned in people's minds rather than the actual event is a valid one as well. And in the original TikTok that she refuted, the girl had posted a picture of the so-called JFK limousine inside of a museum. Okay. Now, in this limo that's in this museum, there are models, fake dummies of JFK and Jackie sitting in the back of this limousine. Okay. So I did a little digging. Well, whatever museum that this picture is from is not exactly accurate. So, what actually happened to the JFK limousine? Let's find out.
Well, it's safe to assume everyone has heard about the tragic assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. Most probably don't know the story about the presidential limousine in which it happened. On November 22nd, 1963, President John F. Kennedy, his wife Jacqueline, Texas Governor John Connally, and his wife Nellie rode in the presidential limousine, a Lincoln Continental, through the streets of Dallas, Texas. At approximately 12:30 p.m., as the motorcade was passing by the Texas School Book Depository, gunshots rang out. Bullets struck President Kennedy on his head and neck, and he was immediately transported to the nearby Parkland Memorial Hospital. The efforts to save the president's life failed, and according to the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum, JFK was pronounced dead at 1 p.m. According to history, Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested and charged for the president's assassination, but he never stood trial. He was shot dead 2 days later by nightclub owner Jack Ruby while being transferred from the Dallas police headquarters to the county jail. In the years since, there have been many questions regarding JFK's assassination, and one of them has to do with the president's Lincoln Continental. What exactly happened to that limousine?
The 1961 Lincoln Continental. Lincoln had a whole new design that year, very clean, very elegant, very modern.
The midnight blue Lincoln Continental was built by the Ford Motor Company in 1961. To make it fit for use during presidential parades, modifications were done by Hess and Eisenhardt, a coach building company that specialized in armored vehicles. According to the Henry Ford Museum, the two companies collaborated to customize the vehicle, which the Secret Service codenamed X100. The original Lincoln Continental was cut in half, and a 3.5-foot extension was added to lengthen it. The vehicle included removable roof panels, heating and air conditioning systems, flashing red lights, 2 radio telephones, and a hydraulic seat to elevate the president. The original car cost about $7,300, but the added features cost almost $200,000, approximately $1.8 million in today's money. The Ford Motor Company remained the owner of the presidential limousine, leasing it to the Secret Service for roughly $500 a year. Most of us might assume that the vehicle was retired after President Kennedy's assassination, but that wasn't the case. According to the New York Daily News, the presidential limousine was transported back to the White House via cargo plane and kept for evidence while it was documented and analyzed by the Warren Commission, the FBI, and the Secret Service. The windshield, which was hit by a bullet, was removed. The White House authorized work to repair and modify the Lincoln Continental in December 1963. For the Henry Ford Museum, it was sent to Hess and Eisenhardt in Cincinnati, Ohio, where it was rebuilt. It was then transported to Ford Motor Company's garage in Dearborn, Michigan to receive new black paint, reinforced structural parts, additional communication technology, a non-removable top, and armor for the passenger compartments. In total, the modifications reportedly cost $500,000 to complete, about $4.6 million in today's money. According to Old Cars Weekly, Kennedy's presidential limousine was used by a few presidents throughout the years, including Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, and Jimmy Carter. As Motor Biscuit explains, President Johnson only used the Lincoln Continental a few times during his presidency, as he was not completely comfortable with it. He opted to ride in other cars from the White House fleet whenever possible. Other presidential vehicles were built in 1968 and 1972, but Kennedy's Lincoln Continental remained a part of the White House fleet until it was finally retired in 1977.
People are always just stunned when I tell them that this car was used, and indeed used until 1977.
It was then sent to the Henry Ford Museum of American Innovation located in Dearborn, Michigan, and it is displayed together with other cars built by the Ford Motor Company. To this day, the JFK Lincoln Continental remains one of the museum's most popular displays. With its shiny exterior and superb condition, those who aren't aware of the vehicle's story wouldn't think that it is one of the most notorious vehicles in American history. Some of the museum's visitors leave flowers by the Lincoln Continental, especially on November 22nd, the anniversary of Kennedy's death.
Okay. So, a couple things from this. I don't know what Ripley's Believe It or Not museum that the original TikTok got their picture from. But it obviously was not the real JFK Lincoln modified limousine. That is actually on display in Detroit at the Ford History Museum. And I highly doubt that they have mannequins of fake JFK and fake Jackie in the back of the car at the museum. In fact, there are pictures of the car at the museum and there are no dummies in the back. Now, the reason that some of these JFK style Lincoln cars in museums appear to only have 2 rows of seats is because they only have 2 rows of seats. You just heard the man say the modifications done to the limousine was it was cut in half and 3.5 feet were added to the middle of it. Now, in that area was installed jump seats, which could be folded down, not visible to the naked eye. The rear seat could be elevated by a hydraulic system, to raise up the president on his motorcades so that he could be seen better. So, of course, this could account for some pictures of the JFK limousine to appear to only have 2 rows of seats, because when the jump seats are not in use, they are folded down and not visible to the public, especially if nobody's sitting in them. So, in order to do these modifications to have an exact replica of the JFK limousine, it would cost millions of dollars, which these ma and pa fucking Ripley's Believe It or Not, whatever museums that have Lincoln replicas, quote unquote, of the JFK limousine, they're not accurate because they can't be. It would cost entirely too much money to have a balls dead accurate replication of the 1961 Lincoln limousine that was modified to JFK with 3 rows of seats and all the various accoutrements, such as a removable roof, heating and cooling system, 2 radio telephones, and a hydraulic rear seat, along with jump seats installed in the middle. So there you have it. I mean, it's awfully easy to find a 61 Lincoln, paint it the right color, put some red lights in the front and say, hey, this is the JFK limousine. But no. Nay. The real one is in Detroit, folks. It does not have dummies in the back of it. And, it would just cost entirely too much to do those modifications to be 100% historically accurate. Hence the reason why people believe when they see things like this in other museums that they're seeing the real vehicle, but that's not the case. Not the case at all. So hence the Mandela effect conundrum. I understand it because in my mind, some things I do remember a different way. I get it. But then some of the things that other people remember a different way are utterly ridiculous. Now, is it because as these timelines shift in and out for certain individuals, that not all of the residual change? Now, there's a good one out there about Jane Goodall, and I don't know if you're old like me, and you remember Jane Goodall. you kind of remember her working with these lowland gorillas in the Congo and all of this stuff, from National Geographic magazine and all that. In fact, Jane Goodall actually worked with chimpanzees, not gorillas. And then some people remember the movie Gorillas in the Mist with Sigourney Weaver, and think that it was about Jane Goodall when it was actually about Diane Fossey, who was murdered in Rwanda. She worked with lowland gorillas, not Jane Goodall. But then when all this Harambe stuff was going down a couple years ago, when they had to kill that gorilla after the little kid fell in his enclosure, the expert that they went to talk about it was Jane Goodall. And Harambe was actually a lowland gorilla from the Congo. So sometimes things get a little squirrely. Now, of course, they couldn't interview Diane Fossey because she was murdered. And I guess the next primate expert, if you will, on the list of notorious primate experts would be Jane Goodall, which makes sense. But it causes some people to believe that is a remnant, a Mandela effect remnant left out there from the timeline that they remember. And it can all get a little crazy. I understand. But for those of us who have been looking at the assassination for 30 some years, there's very little aspects of it actually no aspects of it that have been Mandela affected for me. I mean, I don't believe, that would be like saying, tomorrow, if somebody put up a video saying, that Lee Harvey Oswald, instead of saying, I'm just a patsy, if now if you go look at the video on YouTube, now if he said, no, but I'm just a patsy, but you remember it a different way, that would be fucked up. And so far that hasn't happened, at least for me, at least in the JFK assassination lore. So, all right. But anyway, thank you to Lisa for bringing that to my attention and our attention and addressing it so succinctly as you did, Lisa. Bravo for you. Great job. And I just figured it deserved its own extended look. And hopefully I helped a little bit with the information about the limousine and where it is and all of that jazz. And so hopefully this Mandela effect, this cursed, insanely wrong Mandela effect can be put to bed once and for all. Now, next up for you. Well, look, it's one thing if you're a serious researcher into the JFK assassination, like I like to think of myself as, it burns my ass when other so-called serious JFK assassination researchers put out there theories that are not based in fact, but are presented as fact. And, much like the whole Oswald in the doorway thing that's been debunked 7 ways from Sunday for years and years and years. And then you bring it up and dredge it up like you done discovered gold in the town run. And push it down everybody's throats. Convince other so-called prominent researchers that your theory has merit when it doesn't. And the waters of the JFK assassination research community get muddied and muddied and muddied. And, people that don't know better, new faces, new minds to the JFK research or the JFK assassination research community get polluted easily from the get-go because of horse shit in the water. At least the things that I'm saying, at least, the Judith Vary Baker things and the Ralph Sincate things and, some of the various other nonsensical quote unquote research into the JFK assassination and so-called quote evidence presented by various people throughout the years as legitimate. At least in their somewhat Down syndrome tainted heart, they mean well. I mean, I don't think that they consciously know that the information that they're putting out there is absolutely 100% bullshit, bogus, unverifiable lies. I mean, I just don't think that. I think somewhere in their twisted souls, they believe that they're right. And what hurts more than that, what hurts our community more than that, are very well known, very mainstream, very famous conspiracy theorists, okay, who purvey a narrative that has been debunked forever, presenting facts that have been debunked over and over again, presenting opinions that are mired in stupidity. And it deeply hurts my soul when I hear that, because I know that information reaches thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And of these thousands and thousands and thousands of people, they may only have a cursory knowledge of the JFK assassination. Bits and pieces they've heard along the way. They're not serious researchers. And when they hear this information being provided by someone that they trust, someone that they look up to, someone that has a little bit of merit and weight behind their name, nothing hurts more than that. Because it's very easy. They make it very easy for lone nutters to point and laugh at conspiracy theorists when it comes to the JFK assassination. They can say, look, see, just listen to this guy. This is the best you got. This is what you're telling everybody. This is the best you got. Are you kidding me? Now, the clip that I'm going to play you is from a show that I listen to all the time. I like this show because A, it's funny. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It knows what it is. I'm a fan of the host's stand-up comedy. I would even pay to go see him live if he ever came anywhere around here where I live, which I highly doubt he will. But knowing this guy's reach, his associations, and the power that his show has, that this is the kind of shit that comes out of his mouth about the JFK assassination. Now, this is not his focus. Now, it is a conspiracy theory oriented show. You know, there's stuff on there about, you know, politics, uh, the vax, the jab, the QAnon. There's stuff on there about Tartaria, Old World Florida, giants, aliens, you know, you name it. The name of the podcast what I'm talking about here is the Tinfoil Hat Podcast, hosted by Sam Tripoli. Now, Sam Tripoli is a stand-up comedian, rather famous one. He associates with the likes of Joe Rogan, who I'm sure you've heard of. You know, he's a famous stand-up comedian. A lot of these stand-up comedians have podcasts. You know, Joey Diaz, Joe Rogan, Bert Kreischer, and so on and so forth. So this guy is a big deal, and his show is a big deal. It's listened to by, he probably gets I don't know, probably 1 million downloads a month. I'm just guessing everywhere that it is. But for this information to be put out there just off the cuff is amazing to me. So without further ado, I'm going to play this clip for you from his show. Now, his guest on this show is Eddie Bravo, who is a stand-up comedian, a jiu-jitsu teacher. He's associated with Joe Rogan and the UFC and all this other stuff. So, not to be taken lightly. So here we go.
Oh, what the fuck are you guys even talking about?
Global controls will have to be imposed, and a world governing body will be created to enforce them.
Welcome to Tinfoil Hat JFK. Dude, watch that Zapruder fucking film. It's less, that is some CGI extra shit that was added.
Well,
that driver, he shot the fucking fatal blow. He did.
Bill Cooper later on said he thought it was a doctored video,
Oh, really?
but I still think it happened.
You know what? It
I
could be
think everybody.
If it's a doctor video, yeah, yes, then okay, they fooled us again. But regardless if it was the driver, who shot the fatal blow or whatever, I'm 1,000,000% convinced a lot of motherfuckers were involved. CIA, fucking everybody, Lyndon B. Johnson, the vice president, they were all involved. They were all involved, and they all got together. And it looks like they had multiple shooters, and they all tried to shoot them. And then, like, the insurance, like, in my guesstimation, that driver was like the insurance. If we fucking miss this motherfucker, you got to pull that shit out and blast his head.
All right, I'm going to pause it right there. Just in that short clip, most of the person talking is Eddie Bravo, with Sam Tripoli interjecting here and there. Now, this whole limo driver shooting JFK thing has been around for 30 or 40 years, brought forth by Bill Cooper, where he had a shitty copy of the Zapruder film. And if you watch that shitty copy of the Zapruder film, it does, in fact, if you zero in on that area and blow it up a little bit, it does, in fact, look like the driver turns around and shoots JFK in the head. Now, after he put that theory out there in the world 30 or 40 years ago, and the Zapruder film was cleaned up and slowed down and colorized and stabilized and all that jazz, you can clearly see that it is not the driver pulling a pistol up and shooting in the limousine. It is a sheen off of the passenger's head, shifting in the light of the movie. Not only that, don't you think, okay, if the driver had turned around and shot JFK, that the people in the car would have known it, that somebody on the street would have seen it, and they say, oh, yeah, well, Jackie was trying to get out of the car because the driver was shooting, da, da, da. Not so much. Not so much. So as you can see, we've already got that theory out there. The theory that everybody in the world wanted JFK dead. And Lyndon Johnson's the CIA and everybody collaborated on him. It was like, all these assassins were there in Dealey Plaza, and if none of them got him, then it was up to the driver to turn around and hit the final blow and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. Here we go. Here we go, folks. We're only a minute and a half in. Let's go.
That's what I think.
I think
everybody in
that.
And I think everybody in it knew that they were going to throw Harvey Lee Oswald down the boat. Like they knew, like, oh, he's the one that's going to go down.
Harvey Lee Oswald. Harvey Lee Oswald. Good job. That was the XG, Xavier Guerrero, with his fabulous research into Harvey Lee Oswald.
We're gonna all shoot him, but he's the one that the
he's
to me. The most
sure.
interesting thing about what you're suggesting here with the driver being the shooter is that it implies that Jackie Kennedy was also in on it because she would have seen it. I mean, she was in the perfect angle to see him turn around.
Watch what she did. She gets up and fucking jumps out of the car and tries to go out the back.
Right, but I'm saying, like, it implies she's in it after the fact. Like somebody got to her and said, listen, you can't tell anybody what you saw, which that's really interesting.
I believe that. I believe
that. Now go back and watch the Zapruder film again. And watch frame 313 very carefully. And you will see Jackie is not looking at the driver of the limo at that instant. He's actually cradling and bending down and looking at JFK at that very moment. He wouldn't have seen the driver shoot JFK if that's actually what happened. And of course, by this time, Connolly has been pulled down off his jump seat by his wife. So the driver would have had a clear shot. But that, of course, is not what happened. And Jackie wouldn't have seen it if it actually happened. Just takes a second, boys, to go back and watch the Zapruder film. Let's continue.
Probably, I don't know. I'm guessing, and thank God everybody's dead because they can't sue me or anything. But I'm guessing they probably sat Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy down and say, listen, your husband's been fucking.
Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy? Who the fuck is that? At this time, she was Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. She wouldn't be Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis until she married Onassis a couple years later. And she would never have been Onassis Kennedy. It was Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. But anyway, maybe just a Freudian slip. Or this guy can't speak right. Let's continue.
Everything. And they probably had to prove, because apparently, I don't know if it was true or not, but he had, like, on average, one new mistress a month. That's what I don't know. That could be all bullshit. But I can see if they made it up, it's either true or they made it up. And if it's true, they just sit her down and said, listen, your husband's a piece of shit. He's fucking all these hoes. He's fucking Marilyn Monroe. But if it was false, and they just made it up, it still works. Because if they just like made it up and she believed it, she could go along with the cover up.
Yeah.
Now, we all know JFK was a womanizer. Yes, he may have had an affair with Marilyn Monroe and various other women along the way. Sure. But if you think for a second, folks, that Jacqueline didn't know about any of this, then I don't know what to tell you. Back then, it wasn't as frowned upon as it is now. I mean, certain things, when you're that rich and you're that privileged, just is allowed to kind of happen. Just not in public, of course. If something were to become public, then we have a problem. But if you want to bang this one, bang that one, just don't embarrass me. And I'm sure Jacqueline was doing the same thing. Who knows? But they didn't kill JFK just because he was a piece of shit womanizer and fucking everything in sight. But I digress. Let's continue.
Well, if you talk to Ole Demigard, he says that whole plaza is just all assassins. It's just like he's like John Wick, and they all get the call, and he goes in, and just everyone doop doop, and bang bang bang. He couldn't get out of there alive. But the interesting thing,
Now, wow, that's funny. And I just watched the new John Wick movie yesterday, so it does resonate a bit. Ole Damigard, okay, is somebody I first heard on the old Jim Fetzer radio show. And he has since went on to I have heard him on this show before. And makes it sound like there was 15 to 20 assassins from around the world called in to take JFK out in Dealey Plaza that day. Like everybody just showed up with contracts, not knowing who fucking sent them. And, just collaborated on taking this guy out. And, yeah. So let's continue.
Tucker Carlson fan because what he did to Gary Webb. But he just did an interesting segment on a show talking about why Nixon stepped down. And the belief is that Nixon stepped down because he pulled the head of the CIA into his office, and there's an audio recording of this, and he basically goes, I know the CIA assassinated Kennedy. And the CIA director just sat there quietly, didn't say anything. And next thing you know, he's got ran out, and because they forced Nixon to take Gerald Ford. He didn't want him, but they made him. So he took him on, and then bam, Gerald Ford stepped right in and was the president.
Yeah, with Richard Nixon,
CIA guy, by the way. Gerald Ford.
Okay. So, this meeting between Richard Nixon and Richard Helms, where Nixon told Helms he knows the CIA killed Kennedy. And Helms sat there and didn't say anything. Don't remember that actually taking place. But okay. And Nixon didn't step down. He was impeached, I believe. Thank you to the Watergate scandal. And I don't know whether or not he wanted Gerald Ford as a running mate or not. But certainly Ford stepped right in as his successor. And of course, Gerald Ford was on the Warren Commission. Gerald Ford appointed George H.W. Bush as head of the CIA during his tenure. So there's that. But the stuff that he's spitting out as facts is totally wrong. Back to it.
It's a CIA guy.
Well, he was also on the Warren Commission, which exonerated the CIA from any wrongdoing. So he was the perfect guy. The one thing about Nixon, though, is we've been, I don't know, maybe we got trumped. Maybe because Nixon is notorious. He's like the most notorious president of all time. And maybe we got brainwashed into thinking that. It's hard to tell. But I mean, he was president. So, I mean, how did you become president if you weren't part of this shit? And he was responsible. He was the guy Richard Nixon was the guy who put together Operation 40, which was the 40 international assassins put together to take out Fidel Castro.
Oh, Eddie. Oh, Eddie. So now we have Richard Nixon in charge of Operation 40. There was a group of 40 international assassins that were supposed to kill Fidel Castro. You can't make this shit up, folks. Continue.
All that shit's really confusing. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing. Yeah, maybe Richard Nixon is the most notorious president of all time because we were brainwashed and they smeared him like with Trump. You know what I mean? Like Trump, people think Trump is a Nazi psychopath dictator. You know what I mean? When really he's just a fucking shit talking dude who is trying to drain the swamp. When it comes to Nixon, it's hard to did we get brainwashed into thinking Nixon was this horrible person when really he was actually trying to drain the swamp?
I will say he did arrange delivering supplies and fuel to Israel during the Yom Kippur War. So he was a bit of a Zionist.
Well,
yeah, but how do we know? When shit gets done during someone's presidency, dude, there's so much that goes involved into getting like a bill passed or like funding. It isn't like the president. It's like,
yeah,
like you saw when Trump was president, dude, everybody in government was against them. The House of Representatives were against everybody.
I do think it was like he ordered it, though. It was like something that was from the president, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. With Nixon, I don't know. Is he bad or is he good?
But I'm with you. I do think that he's been smeared after the fact so much that you're just supposed to say, because I mean, think about the stuff he did. He ended Vietnam. He ended the draft. He went to China. A lot of things that you could consider good if it wasn't for.
He went to China.
It ended.
Like, what does that mean?
Like, nobody had gone to China before him. There's this saying now: only Nixon could go to China, and it's because he opened up relations with China, kind of like Trump did with Russia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe Nixon was a good guy. I don't know. And then you don't really know about like Ronald Reagan because I don't know Ronald Reagan. I would love to see a documentary about Ronald Reagan, like a truther documentary about Ronald Reagan. Like, I mean, they did try to assassinate him. They tried to JFK Ronald Reagan, so he must have been good, right? Yeah. For a while. But maybe after they almost killed him, maybe he just fucking snapped out of it and said, I'm going to go along with this shit.
Well, dude, after they almost killed him, that's when his brain went.
And George Bush Sr. was his vice president, but it had nothing to do with Ronald Reagan. Like, just like Gerald Ford and Richard Nixon, George Bush Sr., who was the head of the CIA, whose father, Prescott Bush, formed the fucking CIA.
All right, hold on a second. So, I could have swore the attempted assassination on Ronald Reagan happened like in the first year that he was president, like in 81 or something. So he was good before that, and then had dementia for the next 7 years. I mean, I don't know about that. And then to say that Prescott Bush formed the CIA? Come on, man. Come on.
Motherfucking vice president, and then they try to kill Ronald Reagan, and then that would, if they would have succeeded, that would have meant George Bush Sr. would have been right. You know, he
Oh,
would have
and
been.
by the way, Eddie, the guy who tried to kill Ronald Reagan was George Bush's cousin.
That's
You can't make this shit up, folks. You can't make this shit up. He was not related to George Bush. John Hinckley is not related to George Bush Sr. They were not cousins. Their families knew each other, which is pointed out here, but definitely not related. Come on.
that makes sense, right?
No.
Their families had dinner the night before.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe the dude who shot Ronald Reagan, what was that guy, McKinley? What was his name?
You know who else Hinckley is related to, Eddie? Do you know who else he's related to?
Who?
Barack Obama.
Now, just to go back a minute to John Hinckley Jr. being related to the Bushes. Now, there never actually was a dinner between the Bushes and the Hinkleys. It was actually Scott Hinckley, who was John's older brother and vice president of Vanderbilt Energy Corporation in Denver, Colorado, had plans to attend a dinner party. He and a date were invited to the home of Neil Bush, who worked for the Amoco Oil Company, and who also happened to be the son of Vice President George Bush under Ronald Reagan. At that moment back in D.C., Reagan was being shoved into the presidential limousine and whisked away to the hospital after John Hinckley Jr. had fired 6 times. One bullet ricocheted off the limousine and hit Reagan in the left armpit, collapsing his lung and causing profuse bleeding. Scott Hinckley had met Neil Bush earlier that year at a party and became friendly with the 4th child of George Bush, who is Neil. After news of the assassination attempt broke, Neil Bush canceled the dinner, and in the shooting's aftermath, the media swarmed the Bush family on their connections to the Hinckleys. The only connection between the would-be assassin John Hinckley Jr. and the Bush family turned out to be Scott Hinckley and Neil Bush. Neil Bush told reporters he never recalled meeting John Hinckley Jr. Hinckley, unlike his older brother Scott, who graduated from Vanderbilt before joining the family business, couldn't seem to achieve much in life. Scott Hinckley tried to have his brother institutionalized, actually, 3 weeks before the shooting, but his father, John Hinckley Sr., nixed the plan, believing it would cause his son more emotional scars. Roger Stone, the Republican operative and ally of former President Richard Nixon and Donald Trump, later seized on the Bush-Hinckley connections to come up with a conspiracy theory about a second shooter involved in the assassination attempt and that George H.W. Bush was actually behind it. So there's that, folks. Now, when it comes to John Hinckley Jr. being related to Barack Obama, this is actually true. True. And everybody out there should be familiar with the 6 degrees of separation or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon that, somehow everybody is related or can be associated within 6 degrees of separation. So, ideally, okay, me and Brad Pitt are separated by 6 people, potentially. Like, out of all the people that I know, or all the people I'm related to, there is one person who, out of all the people they know or who related to, there is another person. And out of all the people that they know are related to, there's another person. And so on until you get 6 degrees of separation between me and Brad Pitt. So if I could find the right 6 degrees of separation, it would essentially take me 6 steps to meet or talk to Brad Pitt or Kevin Bacon or whoever. Okay, so there's actually 11 degrees of separation between Barack Obama and John Hinckley Jr. They are 9th cousins, 2 times removed. Okay. So if you take everything all the way back to a fella by the name of Samuel Hinckley, okay? All right. And you go down through 9 generations, okay, of the Samuel Hinckley and Sarah Sewell lineage. They had 2 children, one a woman by the name of Susanna Hinckley and one by the name of John Hinckley. Now, John Hinckley married Bertha Lothrop. Susanna Hinckley married the Reverend John Smith. Susanna and John had a son named Samuel. And John Hinckley and Bertha also had a son named Samuel Hinckley. So now we have Samuel Smith and Samuel Hinckley. Samuel Smith and Elizabeth Pierce had a son named Shubal. Samuel Hinckley and Martha Lothrop had a son named Samuel Hinckley as well, who married Mary Wyatt. Their son was named Abel Hinckley. Shubal Smith married Prudence Fitz Randolph, and they had a daughter named Mary Smith, who married Jonathan Dunham. They had a child named Samuel Dunham. While on the other side, Abel Hinckley and Sarah had a son named Abel Hinckley Jr., who married Hannah Wheeler, who gave birth to Alfred Hinckley. Back on the other side, Samuel Dunham married a Hannah somebody, and they had a son named Jacob Dunham. Jacob married Catherine Goodnight, and Alfred Hinckley on the other side married Eliza Stanley. Their son was named Francis Edward Hinckley. And back on the other side, Jacob Dunham and Catherine Goodnight's son was named Jacob Mackey Dunham. He married Louisa Eliza Thrope. And they had a son named Jacob William Dunham. And back on the other side, Francis Edward Hinckley married Amelia Smith, and they had a son named Percival Porter Hinckley. Percival married Catherine Avila Warnock, and they had a son named John Warnock Hinckley. Back on the other side, Jacob William Dunham and Mary Ann Kearney married and had a son named Ralph Waldo Emerson Dunham. Ralph married Ruth Lucille Armour and had a son named Stanley Armour Dunham. On the other side, John Warnock Hinckley and Joanne Moore had a son named John Hinckley Jr. Now, this is the guy who shot President Reagan. And back on the other side, Stanley Armour Dunham married Madeline Lee Payne. They had a daughter named Stanley Ann Dunham, who married Barack Hussein Obama. Together, they gave birth to Barack Obama. If you believe all of this crazy lineage, and then you have the problem of the old birth certificate and all that jazz with Barack Obama. So are they really related? Who the hell knows? And just to finish this off real quick,
believe it. I don't know why, but I
The
do.
Bushes and the Obamas, their first common ancestor or their relative is a Hinckley.
That's crazy.
Hey guys, real quick, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by the free 5-day CBDC opt-out challenge.
Have you guys heard of CBDCs?
All right. So there you have it, folks. This is the kind of fuckery that hurts the most. These mainstream conspiracy theory shows who just spout irresponsible, quote unquote, facts and just throw shit out to the wind, and it's caught by unawares folks out there who may not be totally read up and researched in the Kennedy assassination and just believe whatever these guys are saying. And then it gets repeated and repeated and repeated. And then all of a sudden, you have all this horse's assery and horse shit out in the world for people like us to wade through and parse and try to fix, which is the whole point of doing this show here today. And again, I don't hate Sam Tripoli. I love his show. I just think that they need to be a little bit more responsible about the things they put out there about the assassination, and maybe should have on a real, reputable researcher into the assassination to set things right with them and explain to them why what they believe or what they've been told along the way, because they're just products of their environment. Okay, it's not their fault. They're just repeating things that they've heard that have been erroneously put out there by other people. But when you do that and you keep procreating these myths, you're doing more harm than good. So that's all. Once again, thank you to the lovely Lisa Marie for your email. I hope we helped and got to the bottom of stuff. Keep up the good work. Keep up the good fight. And keep listening to the damn shows. If you want to follow along, at the Lone Gunman 7 on Twitter, the Lone Gunman podcast YouTube page. Feel free to follow it and like it and subscribe and get notified when new episodes drop. And Eric Huntley of America's Untold Stories. I'm not using your shit, bro. I put out your episode on the Lone Gunman from the Vault to replay things and put them back out there so they can be heard by more people than the original audience. So don't worry, Eric. That'll be the last time anything from your show goes out on my feed. I didn't claim it was my own. I left your intro in there and your names and everything else. It's not like I claimed your work as my own. Okay? It was meant as a good thing. But you turned it into a bad thing. So don't worry. That show's been deleted. It won't happen again. And I'll never mention your name on this show ever again or your podcast. So keep my name out of Mark Gruber's mouth. Thanks. Have a great fucking day. # GFY.